I'm staring at my sister Madison's text message, my hands actually shaking with anger. If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come to Christmas. 28 years old, and she's still treating me like her personal servant. What makes it worse is mom and dad backing her up instantly, like they always do. But this time she picked the wrong fight. This time I have something she doesn't know about. $21,000 that was supposed to make this the best Christmas our family ever had. The memory of 3 weeks ago still burns bright in my mind. I remember walking into my apartment that Friday evening, completely exhausted from debugging code all week at the tech startup, where I work as a software engineer. The envelope was sitting on my kitchen counter where I'd left it that morning, thick and official looking. When I finally opened it, my heart nearly stopped. A year-end bonus check for $21,000. I actually laughed out loud alone in my empty apartment because it felt like winning the lottery. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about what to do with the money. Most guys my age would probably think about a new car or a vacation to somewhere tropical. But all I could think about was my family. Dad had his heart surgery back in June, and even with insurance, those medical bills were crushing him. I'd overheard him on the phone with billing departments trying to negotiate payment plans, his voice strained and tired in ways I'd never heard before. Mom's Honda had been making that grinding noise for months, the same noise that meant expensive transmission work she kept putting off because money was tight. And then there were Madison's kids, my nephews Tyler and Connor, and my nieces Sophia and little Emma. They'd been dropping hints about those new gaming systems for months, the kind that cost $300 or $400 each. Madison worked as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling long shifts, and I knew those kinds of purchases weren't exactly in her budget. The plan formed in my mind like pieces of a puzzle clicking together. Pay off Dad's medical debt completely. Handle Mom's car repairs. Get the kids everything they'd been dreaming about. Maybe even have enough left over for a family vacation next summer, something we hadn't done together since I was in college. I was so excited I could barely contain myself. That Sunday, I called Madison first, figuring I'd coordinate with her about Christmas plans. I wanted everything to be perfect to be a surprise, but I also needed to make sure everyone would be there when I revealed what I was planning. "Hey Madison, it's Brice," I said when she picked up, hearing the chaos of 4 children in the background. "Oh, thank God you called," she said, sounding frazzled. "Listen, I need to talk to you about Christmas. Connor put that down right now. Sorry, Brice. Anyway, I'm hosting this year at Mom and Dad's place, and I'm going to need help." "That's actually perfect. I started because I have this big surprise planned for everyone, and I wanted to make sure we could all coordinate." "Wait, what kind of surprise?" She interrupted, her voice suddenly suspicious. "Please tell me you're not planning some elaborate thing that's going to stress everyone out. Because honestly, Brice, what would really help is if you could just be practical for once." No, it's nothing stressful," I said, trying to keep the excitement in my voice under control. "It's actually something really good, something that's going to help everyone. But I want it to be a surprise, so I can't tell you exactly what it is yet." There was a pause on the other end. "Help how, Brice? If this is about money, you know Dad's too proud to accept anything, and Mom will just worry about you spending too much. Trust me on this one, Madison. It's not going to be a problem. I just want to make sure everyone's there, and I want to focus on family time, really connecting with everyone, spending quality time with the kids." "Well, quality time," she repeated, her tone shifting. "Okay, well, here's what would actually help with quality time. I need someone to watch the kids Christmas Eve while I finish cooking. Tyler's been impossible lately. Emma's going through that phase where she won't listen to anyone. And Connor and Sophia just feed off each other's energy. It's chaos, Brice." I felt my stomach drop a little. "Madison, I was really hoping Christmas could be more about all of us spending time together as a family. I've been working so much lately, and I just want to actually enjoy being around everyone without having a job to do." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. A job to do? She repeated slowly. Brice, taking care of my children isn't a job. They're your nephews and nieces. They're family. That's not what I meant, I said quickly. Of course they're family. I love those kids. I just meant that every time we have family gatherings, I end up being the designated babysitter while everyone else gets to relax and enjoy themselves. Remember Thanksgiving. I spent the entire day chasing Emma around while you and Mom and Dad sat at the table catching up. You spent the day playing with your niece because she adores you, Madison shot back. Since when is spending time with kids who worship you such a burden? The conversation was going completely wrong. This wasn't how I'd imagined sharing my excitement about the surprise I was planning. It's not a burden, Madison. I just want this Christmas to be different. I want us to all be together as adults, having real conversations. Real conversations, she said, her voice getting sharper. You know what, Brice? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You live in your little bachelor apartment, you don't have any real responsibilities, and you think family time means everyone catering to what you want to do. That's not fair, I said, feeling defensive. I work 60-hour weeks. I have responsibilities. To yourself, she said. When's the last time you had to sacrifice something you wanted for someone else? When's the last time you put family needs ahead of your own convenience? I wanted to tell her right then and there about the $21,000, about everything I was planning to sacrifice for the family. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the accusatory tone in her voice, or maybe it was the way she was making me sound selfish for wanting to actually enjoy Christmas instead of working through it. You know what? I said, finally. Forget I called. Plan Christmas however you want. Don't be dramatic, Brice. I'm just asking for help. A few hours of watching the kids, that's what family does. And I'm asking for one Christmas where I get to be a guest instead of hired help. That's what I want from family. She sighed heavily. Fine. I'll figure it out myself. I always do. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in my quiet apartment. The bonus check was still on my counter, but suddenly it didn't feel like such a blessing anymore. The first person I'd tried to share my excitement with had turned it into an argument about babysitting duties. I should have called her back. I should have explained about the money, about my plans. But I was stubborn and hurt, and I convinced myself that she'd understand eventually when she saw what I was really planning. That was my first mistake, because instead of calling me back, Madison called Mom. And instead of trying to understand my perspective, she called Dad. And by the time I realized what was happening, the whole family had heard her version of our conversation first. The version where I was a selfish bachelor who couldn't be bothered to help with his own nephews and nieces. The version where I'd called her up just to complain about family obligations and demand special treatment. The version that made me the villain before I ever got a chance to explain that I was trying to be the hero. The call from Mom came exactly 43 minutes after I hung up with Madison. I know because I was still pacing around my apartment, replaying the conversation and getting more frustrated with each loop. When Mom's contact photo lit up my phone screen, I actually felt relieved. Mom would understand. She was always the peacekeeper, the one who could see both sides of family conflicts. Brice, honey, she said, but her voice had that particular tone I remembered from childhood. The disappointed tone. The one that meant I was in trouble before I even knew what I'd done wrong. Hey, Mom, I said, trying to sound casual. What's up? I just got off the phone with Madison and she's really upset. She's crying, Brice. What happened between you two? My chest tightened. She told you her side already, didn't she? She told me that she asked for help with Christmas and you refused. She said you told her that spending time with your nephews and nieces was beneath you. That is not what I said. I replied, probably too quickly and too defensively. Mom, that's not even close to what I said. Then what did you say because your sister is in tears thinking that you don't want to be around her children? I took a deep breath, trying to figure out how to explain without ruining the surprise. I just said that I wanted Christmas to be about family time, about all of us spending time together, instead of me being separated off to babysit while everyone else enjoys the holiday. Brice. Mom said, her voice getting softer but somehow more disappointed. Those children are family. Madison works so hard, honey. She's been pulling double shifts at the hospital because they're short-staffed for the holidays. She's exhausted. And Christmas is already so stressful when you're trying to make everything magical for 4 little ones. I know she works hard, Mom. I'm not saying she doesn't. Then why can't you just help her out? She's not asking you to raise her children. She's asking for a few hours so she can get the Christmas dinner ready without having to worry about Tyler getting into everything or Emma having a meltdown because she's overtired. I wanted to tell her so badly. I wanted to explain that I was planning to help in ways that would actually matter, in ways that would change everything for our family. But I'd already decided the surprise was important, and I was stubborn enough to stick with it, even when it was making things worse. It's not about helping her out, Mom. It's about the fact that every single family gathering turns into me being the designated kid wrangler, while everyone else gets to be adults together. Is that really how you see it? She asked. Because from where I sit, it looks like Madison includes you, because those kids adore you and you're good with them. She trusts you with what's most precious to her. Before I could answer, I heard Dad's voice in the background. Is that Brice? Let me talk to him. My stomach dropped. If Mom was disappointed, Dad would be furious. He had zero patience for what he called family drama, and even less patience for anyone who didn't immediately step up when family needed help. Son, Dad's voice came through the phone gruff and stern. What's this I hear about you giving your sister grief? Dad, I wasn't giving her grief, She called here crying because you won't help with the kids at Christmas. Now I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but that's not how we raised you. How you raised me, I repeated, feeling anger start to bubble up alongside the hurt. Dad, you raised me to believe that family takes care of each other. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. By refusing to help when you're asked directly, by wanting to participate in Christmas as a family member instead of hired help. Hired help. Dad repeated, his voice getting dangerous. Son, your sister sacrifices everything for those kids. She doesn't have a social life. She doesn't get to take vacations. She works herself to the bone to give them a good life. And you're complaining about spending a few hours with your own nephews and nieces. I'm not complaining about spending time with them. I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I'm saying that I want Christmas to be different this year. I want us to actually be together as a family. We are together as a family, Dad said. And part of being family is helping each other out. Your sister needs help, period. End of discussion. What if I have something planned? I asked, hating how defensive I sounded. What if there's a reason I want Christmas to be different this year? Like what? I almost told him then. The words were right there ready to spill out. But something about his tone, about the way this whole conversation had gone, made me dig in my heels instead. Like maybe I just want to enjoy Christmas for once instead of working through it. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then Dad's voice came back colder than I'd ever heard it directed at me. You know what, Brice? Maybe you should think about what Christmas is really supposed to mean. Because it's not about what you want. It's about family. Taking care of family. Your sister is family. Those kids are family. And if you can't see that, then maybe you need to do some growing up. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in complete shock. In 28 years, my father had never hung up on me. We'd argued before, sure, but he'd never just cut me off like that. I sat down heavily on my couch, trying to process what had just happened. An hour ago, I'd been planning the most generous Christmas surprise in our family's history. Now somehow I was the selfish bad guy who didn't care about his own nephews and nieces. My phone buzzed with a text message. Not from Mom or Dad or Madison, but from my cousin Jake. Dude, what did you do? Madison just posted on Facebook about how some people are too selfish to help family during the holidays. Everyone's talking about it. My blood ran cold. I opened Facebook and scrolled to Madison's page. Sure enough, there it was. A long post about the importance of family, about how disappointing it is when people you count on let you down, about how hard it is to be a single mother during the holidays, when you can't rely on the people who should care most. She didn't mention my name specifically, but she didn't need to. Anyone who knew our family would know exactly who she was talking about. And the comments were already starting to pour in. Supportive messages for Madison, subtle and not so subtle criticisms of whoever had let her down. My cousin Emma had commented, "Some people just don't understand what sacrifice means. You're an amazing mom, Madison. My Aunt Patricia family should always come first. I'm sorry you're dealing with this." Even some of Madison's friends from work were weighing in, "Single mothers deserve better support from their families." Each comment felt like a punch to the gut. My entire extended family was seeing this. People who'd known me my whole life were reading between the lines and concluding that I was the type of person who abandoned family when they needed help most. I wanted to comment to defend myself, to explain that they didn't have the whole story. But what could I say? That I was planning a surprise? That would ruin it. That Madison had misunderstood our conversation? That would just sound like excuse making. Instead, I closed Facebook and threw my phone on the coffee table. The bonus check was still on my kitchen counter, but now it felt like evidence of my own naivety. I'd been so focused on planning this grand gesture that I'd forgotten how quickly family dynamics could spiral out of control. The worst part was that I could see Madison's perspective. She was overwhelmed, working double shifts trying to make Christmas perfect for 4 kids on her own. When she'd asked for help, I'd pushed back, probably sounding exactly as selfish as she'd described to everyone else. But I could also see my own perspective. I worked 60-hour weeks. I never asked the family for anything. And when I finally had the resources to do something meaningful for everyone, I wanted it to be special. I wanted to be included, not just useful. The problem was that now no one else could see my perspective. Madison had defined the narrative first, and in family politics, being first usually means being right. My phone rang again. This time it was Jake calling. "Brice, man, what the hell happened? Madison's telling everyone you bailed on Christmas because you don't want to help with the kids." "It's not that simple, Jake." "Then explain it to me, because right now you look like a complete jerk, and I know that's not who you are." I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell someone about the money, about my plans, about how this whole thing had gotten twisted around, but I was still holding on to the idea that the surprise would fix everything. "I can't explain right now," I said, "but it's not what everyone thinks. Dude, you need to fix this, like tonight. Madison's really hurt, your parents are pissed, and now it's spreading to the whole family. Whatever you're thinking, whatever point you're trying to make, it's not worth this." After Jake hung up, I sat in my apartment as the sun set outside my windows. The Christmas lights I'd put up the week before looked ridiculous now, twinkling cheerfully in a room that felt anything but cheerful. I'd started the day excited about giving my family the best Christmas of their lives. I was ending it as the family villain with a Facebook post about my selfishness making the rounds among relatives and family friends. And the worst part was that I still thought I was right. I still believed that wanting to be included, rather than just useful, was reasonable. I still believed that my surprise would make everyone understand. I just hadn't counted on how much damage would be done before I got the chance to spring it. The next 3 days passed in a cold war that felt like it was freezing my soul from the inside out. No calls from mom or dad, no texts from Madison. Even Jake stopped reaching out after our conversation, probably figuring I needed space to come to my senses. But I wasn't coming to my senses. I was getting more entrenched in my position with each passing hour. Every time I looked at that bonus check, every time I thought about the medical bills I was going to eliminate for dad, or the relief I was going to bring mom, I felt justified in my frustration. I was planning to give them everything, and they were treating me like I was selfish for wanting Christmas to feel like a celebration instead of a work assignment. Tuesday morning, 3 days before Christmas, My phone buzzed with a new text message. Madison's name on the screen made my pulse quicken. Maybe she'd thought about our conversation. Maybe she was ready to listen to my side. Instead, I opened the message and felt like I'd been slapped. Brice, I've been thinking about our conversation and I've decided what needs to happen. If you want to come to Christmas, here's what I need from you. Babysit the 4 kids Christmas Eve while I finish cooking, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. contribute $500 toward Christmas dinner, since you'll be eating 2 drive to Springfield to pick up Aunt Patricia, since Mom's car isn't reliable for the 3-hour trip, and help set up decorations Wednesday night. If you can't do these simple things to help your family, then maybe you shouldn't come at all. I read the message 3 times, each time feeling my anger grow hotter. It wasn't a request anymore. It wasn't even a negotiation. It was an ultimatum wrapped up in manipulation, with my attendance at Christmas being held hostage, unless I agreed to become the family servant for the entire holiday weekend. $500 for dinner, a 6-hour round trip to Springfield, 4 hours of babysitting, an entire evening of decoration setup. She was asking for nearly a full day of my time plus a significant financial contribution, and framing it as simple things that any decent family member would do without question. But what really made my blood boil was the implication that if I didn't agree to all of it, I wasn't welcome at Christmas at all. I started typing a response 3 different times, deleting each one before I sent it. The first was too angry. The second was too defensive. The third was too long and rambling. Finally, I settled on something simple. Madison, these aren't simple requests. They're demands. And holding my invitation to Christmas hostage unless I agree to all of them feels manipulative. Her response came back within minutes. Manipulative Brice. This is what family does. We help each other. If asking for help is manipulative, then I guess I don't understand what family means to you anymore. Before I could respond, she sent another message. I'm copying Mom and Dad on this so there's no confusion about what's being asked here. My phone immediately buzzed with a group text that included all 4 of us. Madison had copy-pasted her original demands, then added, Mom and Dad, I've asked Brice to help with these things for Christmas, and he's calling me manipulative for asking. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to make Christmas work for everyone, but I can't do it alone, and I can't force someone to want to be part of this family. The response from Dad was immediate. Madison's requests are completely reasonable. Brice, I'm disappointed that you're making this harder than it needs to be. Mom chimed in 30 seconds later. Honey, we all pitch in during the holidays. That's what makes it special. Madison works so hard and she's just asking for help. I stared at my phone feeling like I was in some kind of alternate reality. Madison had just demanded a day of my time plus $500, threatened to disinvite me from Christmas if I didn't comply. And somehow I was the unreasonable one for pushing back. These aren't requests, I typed into the group text. They're ultimatums. And the fact that everyone thinks this is normal says a lot about how my time and money are valued in this family. Dad's response was swift and brutal. Your time and money, son, your sister has 4 children to think about. She doesn't have the luxury of treating her time and money like they only belong to her. Step up or stay home. That phrase hit me like a physical blow. Step up or stay home. As if everything I'd done for the family over the years meant nothing. As if my willingness to spend $21,000 on them meant nothing, because I hadn't immediately agreed to also spend my entire Christmas weekend working for free. I was about to type something I'd probably regret when another text came in, this one from Madison, directly to me. Just so you know, I already told the kids that Uncle Brice might not come to Christmas because he doesn't want to spend time with them. Tyler asked me if he did something wrong to make you not want to see him. That message hit me in a place I didn't know was vulnerable. Tyler, who was 7 years old, and thought I was the coolest person in the world because I'd taught him to skateboard last summer. Tyler, who always wanted to sit next to me at family dinners and show me his latest drawings. Tyler, who was now wondering if he'd done something to make his uncle not love him anymore. I called Madison immediately, my hands shaking with a combination of rage and heartbreak. How could you tell the kids that I demanded as soon as she picked up. How could you make them think this has anything to do with them? Because it does have to do with them, Brice, she said, her voice tired but defiant. When you refuse to help with Christmas, when you call my requests unreasonable, you're saying that being around them isn't worth a little bit of inconvenience. That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. Then what are you saying? Because from where I sit, it looks like you want all the fun parts of being an uncle without any of the responsibility parts. I'm saying that I should be able to come to Christmas as a guest, as a family member, without having to earn my invitation by working for it. Guest, she repeated. That's interesting, because I don't get to be a guest at Christmas. Mom doesn't get to be a guest. Dad doesn't get to be a guest. We all work to make it happen. But you want to show up and just enjoy what everyone else created. That's not fair, Madison. You know what's not fair? Being a single mother working double shifts and having your brother act like helping with your kids is beneath him. I never said it was beneath me. You didn't have to say it. Your whole attitude says it. The way you talk about babysitting like it's some kind of punishment. The way you act like spending time with them is a favor you're doing for me, instead of something you want to do because you love them. I wanted to tell her right then about the gaming systems I'd already ordered online, about the way I'd been planning to watch the kids' faces light up Christmas morning. I wanted to explain that this had never been about not wanting to spend time with them. But her accusation about my attitude cut deep because there was truth in it. I had been treating babysitting like a chore, like an obligation that kept me from enjoying Christmas the way I wanted to. And maybe that did send a message about how I valued time with the kids versus time with the adults. Madison, I said, trying to find words that would bridge the gap between us. This isn't about the kids. This is about feeling like I only matter to this family for what I can do, not for who I am. What you can do is part of who you are, Brice. The way you show up for people you love is part of who you are. And lately, you're not showing up. The conversation ended there with both of us frustrated and hurt, and no closer to understanding each other. But something had shifted in my thinking. Her words about showing up for people you love stuck with me, even though I was still angry about her methods. That evening, I got a call from my cousin Emma, Madison's closest friend in the family. Brice, I need to tell you something, she said without preamble. Madison's been crying for 3 days straight. She's not sleeping, she's barely eating, and she's convinced that she's destroyed Christmas for everyone. She's destroyed Christmas, I said, incredulous. Emma, she's the one making ultimatums and threatening to disinvite me. She's scared, Brice. She's terrified that she can't pull off Christmas for the kids, and she's too proud to admit how much help she actually needs. So instead of asking for help, she's demanding it, which I know isn't right, but it's coming from panic, not malice. If she needs help, she should ask for help. She shouldn't threaten me into providing it. You're right, Emma said, but you should also know that she's been telling people she thinks you hate her. She thinks you see her as this burden, this needy sister who only calls when she wants something. That stopped me cold. I don't hate her. I don't see her as a burden. Then why won't you just help her? I mean, really, Brice? What's the big deal about babysitting for a few hours or contributing some money to dinner? You make good money. You don't have kids of your own. Why is this such a problem? It was the same question everyone was asking, and I still didn't have an answer that didn't sound selfish. Because the truth was that it wasn't about the money or the time. It was about the principle, about being valued for more than just my usefulness. But principles don't comfort crying children who think their uncle doesn't want to see them. Principles don't help exhausted single mothers who are drowning in holiday stress. As I hung up with Emma, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could keep standing on principle, keep insisting that my family should appreciate my surprise gesture without requiring me to also meet their immediate needs. Or I could swallow my pride, agree to Madison's demands, and try to salvage Christmas for everyone. The problem was that neither choice felt right anymore. Agreeing to the demands felt like rewarding manipulation and setting a precedent that my boundaries didn't matter. But refusing felt like punishing innocent kids, and an overwhelmed sister for a conflict that had spiraled way beyond anyone's original intentions. I went to bed that night with no plan except to hope that tomorrow would bring some clarity. Instead, it brought the text message that would change everything. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night alternating between righteous anger and guilty anxiety. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face asking his mom if he'd done something wrong. Every time I tried to rationalize my position, I heard Dad's voice telling me to step up or stay home. But when I woke up and saw the bonus check still sitting on my kitchen counter, I felt a fresh wave of frustration. Here I was planning to give my family more money than most people made in months, and they were treating me like I was selfish for wanting to enjoy Christmas instead of working through it. My phone had been quiet all morning, which somehow felt worse than the arguing. At least when people were yelling at me, I knew where I stood. The silence felt ominous, like the calm before a storm. At 11:37 a.m., that storm arrived in the form of another group text from Madison. Final decision time, Brice. Christmas is in 2 days. I need to know right now if you're going to help with the things I asked for, or if I need to make other arrangements. The kids keep asking if Uncle Brice is coming, and I need to give them an answer. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling something shift inside my chest. It wasn't anger this time. It was something colder, something more final. She wasn't asking anymore. She wasn't explaining or justifying or trying to convince me. She was demanding a yes or no answer to her ultimatum, with the clear implication that no meant I wasn't welcome at Christmas at all. And suddenly I was done. Done with being treated like my only value to the family was what I could provide. Done with having my boundaries ignored and my feelings dismissed. Done with being painted as selfish for wanting to be included rather than just useful. I typed my response quickly before I could second-guess myself. Cool then, my $21,000 isn't showing up to Christmas either. I hit send before I could think about it, before I could consider the consequences, before I could imagine the explosion that was about to follow. The silence that followed was immediate and profound. No response for 5 minutes. Then 10. Then 20. I found myself pacing around my apartment, adrenaline coursing through my system. Part of me felt relieved, like I'd finally stood up for myself after days of being pushed around. Part of me felt sick, like I'd just detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of my family. The $21,000. I'd finally said it. The number was out there now, hanging in the digital space of our group text like a revelation that changed everything. At 12:15, my phone rang. Madison's name on the screen. "What $21,000? She said as soon as I picked up her voice, sharp and confused. "What are you talking about?" "My year-end bonus." I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. $21,000 that I've been planning to spend on Christmas for everyone. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. "You what?" She finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "I got a bonus 3 weeks ago, $21,000. I've been planning to pay off Dad's medical bills, fix Mom's car, and get the kids everything they wanted for Christmas. I was going to surprise everyone." Another long silence. Then, "You never said anything about money. You never mentioned a bonus." I said, feeling years of frustration pouring into my voice. "I called you 3 weeks ago and said I had a big surprise planned, something that was going to help everyone. You didn't let me finish explaining because you were too busy making demands about babysitting." "I didn't know," she said, her voice cracking. "Brice, I had no idea you were planning something like that. Because nobody listens to me in this family unless I'm agreeing to do what you want me to do. I tried to tell you I wanted Christmas to be different this year, that I had something special planned. But all anyone heard was that I didn't want to babysit." I could hear her crying now, soft sobs that made my chest ache even though I was still angry. "The medical bills?" she asked. You were going to pay Dad's medical bills, all of them, every penny, and Mom's car repairs, and those gaming systems the kids have been wanting. Oh God, she whispered. Brice, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. I thought you were just being difficult. I was being difficult, I admitted. But I was being difficult because I wanted to be part of Christmas, not the hired help for Christmas. I wanted to give everyone this amazing gift, and then actually get to enjoy the holiday with my family instead of working through it. You could have told me, she said. When I was making those demands, you could have explained about the bonus. I shouldn't have had to, I said. You should have listened when I said I wanted Christmas to be different. You should have trusted that I had a good reason for pushing back instead of assuming I was being selfish. The group text was exploding with messages now. I could see the notifications popping up on my screen, but I ignored them, focusing on Madison's voice. What are you going to do with the money now? She asked quietly. I looked around my apartment, taking in the Christmas decorations I'd put up with such hope just a few weeks ago. The tree I'd bought specifically because I was imagining Tyler and Connor and Sophia and Emma opening presents underneath it. The stockings I'd hung up, thinking about how full they were going to be. I don't know, I said honestly. I canceled my Christmas plans entirely. The dinner reservations, the gift orders, everything. You canceled everything. Well, what's the point? Christmas is about family, and apparently my family doesn't want me there unless I'm working. That's not true, Brice. We want you there. I want you there. You want me there as the babysitter who brings money? That's not the same thing. She was crying harder now. I messed up everything, didn't I? I ruined Christmas. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it wasn't her fault, that we could fix this. But a bigger part of me was still too hurt, still too angry about the way I'd been treated. I don't know if you ruined Christmas, I said, but you definitely changed it. After I hung up, I looked at the group text. 17 new messages. Dad asking what I meant about $21,000. Mom demanding an explanation. Madison trying to explain to them what I'd told her. But I didn't feel like explaining anymore. I didn't feel like justifying my hurt feelings or defending my decision to keep the surprise secret. I didn't feel like working to repair relationships with people who'd been so quick to assume the worst about me. Instead, I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. I turned off my phone. The silence in my apartment was complete and strange. No buzzing notifications, no ringing calls, no text message alerts, just me and my thoughts and the $21,000 check that had started all of this. I walked to my kitchen counter and picked up the check, studying it, like it held answers to questions I didn't know how to ask. 3 weeks ago, this piece of paper had represented hope, generosity, and love. Today, it felt like evidence of my own naivety. How had I been so wrong about everything? How had my attempt to give my family the best Christmas ever turned into a nuclear war that left everyone hurt and angry? Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I needed to grow up to understand that family meant sacrifice and compromise, not grand gestures and conditions. Or maybe I was right, and my family needed to understand that love wasn't just about what you could provide, but about being valued for who you were. Either way, Christmas was in 2 days, and for the first time in my 28 years, I wouldn't be spending it with my family. The check fluttered slightly in my hands, and I realized I was shaking. Not with anger anymore, but with something deeper and more frightening. I was alone, completely and utterly alone. And I had no idea how to fix what I'd broken, or even if I wanted to. I kept my phone turned off for exactly 6 hours and 43 minutes. I know because I kept checking the clock on my laptop, wondering if someone would actually drive to my apartment to check on me. In my family, 6 hours of radio silence was unprecedented. When I finally turned the phone back on, I was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of notifications. 37 text messages, 14 missed calls, 5 voicemails, and a string of Facebook notifications that I was afraid to check. The first voicemail was from Dad, his voice shakier than I'd ever heard it. Son, We need to talk. I don't understand what happened here, but we need to fix this. Call me back. The second was from Mom crying, Brice, honey, please call us. Please. We didn't know about the money. We didn't understand what you were trying to do. But it was the third voicemail that broke something open in my chest. Tyler's 7-year-old voice, obviously coached by Madison, but heartbreakingly sincere. Uncle Brice, Mommy, let me call you. I'm sorry if I did something wrong. I love you and I want you to come to Christmas. Please come to Christmas. I had to sit down on my couch and put my head in my hands. Whatever point I'd been trying to prove, whatever stand I'd been trying to take, it wasn't worth making a 7-year-old think he'd done something to push me away. The text messages told the story of 6 hours of family chaos. Madison trying to explain to our parents what I'd told her about the bonus. Dad expressing confusion and regret. Mom asking why I'd never mentioned the money. Extended family members who'd apparently been brought into the loop, all expressing various levels of shock and apology. But it was the message from my cousin Jake that made me realize how badly I'd misjudged the entire situation. Dude, Madison just told me about the bonus in your plans. I had no idea. But there's stuff you don't know either. Madison's been hiding how bad things really are financially. Her ex stopped paying child support 3 months ago. She's been working double shifts just to keep the lights on. When she was asking for your help, she wasn't trying to control you. She was drowning. Child support stopped 3 months ago. Madison drowning financially? Suddenly, her demands for babysitting help and financial contributions took on a completely different meaning. I immediately called Jake back. Tell me everything, I said as soon as he picked up. Madison made me promise not to tell anyone, but after today, I think the secret keeping has done enough damage. Her ex-husband lost his job back in September and just stopped sending support payments. No explanation, no negotiation, just stopped. Madison's been trying to cover the difference by picking up extra shifts, but she's barely keeping up with rent and utilities, let alone Christmas for 4 kids. Why didn't she tell us? Why didn't she ask for help directly? Pride, man. You know how she is. She didn't want anyone to think she couldn't handle things on her own. And she especially didn't want Dad to stress about it while he's dealing with his own medical bills. Medical bills that I'd been planning to eliminate completely. The irony was staggering. So when she was asking me to contribute to Christmas dinner, she was trying to figure out how to pay for groceries without actually admitting that she couldn't afford groceries. When she was asking you to babysit, she was trying to avoid paying a sitter she couldn't afford. Everything was about money, Brice. But she couldn't bring herself to say that. I felt sick. While I'd been getting defensive about my boundaries and my desire to be treated like a guest instead of help, Madison had been facing down the possibility of not being able to give her kids any Christmas at all. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. The medical bills for Dad, how bad are they really? There was a long pause. Bad, Brice. Really bad. He's been hiding collection notices from Mom. I helped him organize his paperwork last month, and it's ugly. The heart surgery was just the beginning. He's got ongoing treatments, medications, follow-up appointments. Even with insurance, it's crushing them. And Mom's car. She's been skipping her own doctor appointments because she can't trust the Honda to make the trip. Her blood pressure medication costs $200 a month, and last month she didn't fill the prescription because she used that money to help Madison with utilities. Every piece of information felt like another weight settling on my chest. My family hadn't been ganging up on me because they were selfish or controlling. They'd been drowning in financial stress that I'd been completely oblivious to, and when I'd pushed back against requests that seemed unreasonable, I'd actually been pushing back against desperate attempts to keep everything from falling apart. Why didn't anyone tell me how bad things were? Because you're the success story, man. You're the one with the good job and the nice apartment and the financial stability. Nobody wanted to burden you with their problems. But that's exactly what family should do, I said. We should share problems. We should help each other. I know, and you were trying to help with the bonus and the surprise. But Madison needed help 3 months ago, and she was too proud to ask for it directly. That evening, my cousin Emma called with even more context that made me understand just how wrong I'd been about everything. Brice, I need to tell you about last weekend. Madison and I went grocery shopping for Christmas dinner, and she had a panic attack in the checkout line because the total was $60 more than she'd budgeted for. $60. She stood there hyperventilating because she couldn't figure out how to afford the food for Christmas dinner. Emma, why didn't you tell me this sooner? Because she made me promise not to. She's terrified that if people know how bad things are, someone will call child services or something. She's convinced that asking for help is the same as admitting she can't take care of her kids. That's ridiculous. Child services doesn't investigate people for being broke. You know that, and I know that, but Madison's scared and exhausted and not thinking clearly. She's been living on 4 hours of sleep a night for months, working doubles, and then coming home to 4 kids who need homework help and dinner and bedtime routines. When she asked you to babysit, it wasn't about control. It was about getting a few hours where she could breathe. The picture Emma was painting was devastating. While I'd been focused on feeling unappreciated and overworked during family gatherings, Madison had been holding our entire family together through sheer force of will and stubbornness. And the Facebook post, I asked, about family not stepping up. That wasn't about you specifically, even though I know it felt that way. She posted that after she spent 2 hours on the phone with her ex-husband begging him to send even partial child support for Christmas. He told her it wasn't his problem anymore. Every detail made the situation clearer and made me feel worse. Madison's demands hadn't been arbitrary or controlling. They'd been the actions of someone drowning who was trying to grab onto anything that might keep her afloat. Emma, I need to fix this, but I don't know how. Start by understanding that Madison doesn't know how to accept help gracefully. She's been in survival mode for so long that asking for support feels like admitting defeat. When you pushed back against her requests, it confirmed her worst fear, that she really is all alone in this. After Emma hung up, I sat in my apartment surrounded by the Christmas decorations that now seemed to mock my earlier optimism. I'd been so focused on my grand gesture, on my vision of the perfect Christmas surprise, that I'd completely missed the fact that my family was in crisis mode. The bonus check was still on my kitchen counter, but now it represented something different. Not just generosity, but necessity. Not just a nice surprise, but a lifeline that my family desperately needed. But the damage was done. Madison thought I hated her. My parents thought I was selfish. The kids thought I didn't want to spend time with them. And Christmas was tomorrow. I picked up my phone and scrolled through all the missed messages one more time. Hidden among the apologies and explanations and pleas for reconciliation was a simple text from Madison that I'd missed earlier. I understand if you don't want to come tomorrow. I understand if you can't forgive me for how I handled everything. But the kids made you something, and I'd like to give it to you anyway. Would it be okay if I dropped it off? The kids had made me something. Even after all of this drama, even after thinking I might not be coming to Christmas, they'd made me a present. I looked at the clock. 8:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Most families were probably settling in for the night, kids too excited to sleep, parents wrapping last-minute gifts. My family was probably sitting in Mom and Dad's house wondering if Christmas was ruined, wondering if I was ever going to forgive them for misunderstanding my intentions. They had no idea that I was the one who needed forgiveness. But first, I needed to understand something that had been nagging at me all day. If Madison needed money so desperately, if she was working double shifts and couldn't afford Christmas dinner, why had she been so indirect about it? Why create elaborate scenarios about babysitting and decorations instead of just telling me the truth? I was about to find out that the answer to that question would change everything I thought I knew about my sister. Christmas Eve morning, I woke up with a clarity that surprised me. For the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The revelation about Madison's financial situation had shifted everything. This wasn't about family dynamics or boundaries or who was right and who was wrong anymore. This was about my sister drowning while trying to maintain her pride and my family falling apart while trying to protect each other from the truth. I got dressed quickly and drove to the bank, arriving just as they opened at 9 a.m. The teller looked surprised when I asked to withdraw $8,000 in cash, but she processed the transaction without questions. The money felt heavy in my hands, not just physically, but emotionally. $8,000 represented security breathing room, the difference between Madison struggling and Madison being okay. From the bank, I drove straight to Madison's apartment. I'd only been there a few times since she'd moved in after her divorce, but I remembered the address. The building was older, the kind of place where the rent was affordable, but the walls were thin and the heating was unreliable. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before getting out, trying to figure out what I was going to say. How do you apologize for being selfish and stubborn while simultaneously trying to help without making the other person feel pitied? Madison answered the door after my second knock, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing scrubs from work, and her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion. "Brice," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" I held out the envelope containing the cash. "This is for you. $8,000. It should cover your bills through the winter and give you some breathing room." She stared at the envelope without taking it. "I can't accept that. Madison Jake told me about the child support. Emma told me about the grocery store panic attack. I know how bad things really are." Her face crumpled, and she covered it with her hands. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to be the family charity case." "You're not a charity case. You're family. And family helps family." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I messed everything up, didn't I? Christmas is ruined and it's my fault?" I stepped inside her apartment and closed the door behind me. The living room was small, but clean, decorated with handmade Christmas decorations that the kids had obviously crafted themselves. A small tree sat in the corner, surrounded by a modest pile of wrapped gifts that I suspected had been carefully budgeted for months. "Madison, we both messed up. I was stubborn and secretive about the bonus. You were proud and indirect about needing help. But none of that matters now." She finally took the envelope, holding it like it might disappear. "This is too much, Brice. I can't take this much money from you." "It's not too much. It's exactly what you need. And it's not a loan, it's a gift. From someone who loves you and should have been paying attention to how much you were struggling." She sat down heavily on her couch, staring at the envelope. "The babysitting thing, it wasn't really about babysitting. I couldn't afford to hire anyone and I needed help. But I couldn't figure out how to ask without admitting how bad things were. I know, and I should have realized that. I know you, Madison. You've never asked for help unless you were desperate. And the money for Christmas dinner? God, Brice, I was so embarrassed. I kept adding things to the grocery list and watching the total go up, knowing I couldn't afford it, but not wanting to disappoint the kids. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you say you needed financial help?" She laughed bitterly. "Because you're my little brother. You're supposed to look up to me, not take care of me. I'm supposed to have my life together. Madison, you're a single mother working double shifts and raising 4 kids. Having your life together doesn't mean never needing help. It means being strong enough to ask for help when you need it." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing weeks of misunderstanding and hurt feelings. "The kids have been asking about you all week," she said finally. "Tyler's convinced he did something to make you angry. Emma keeps asking if Uncle Brice doesn't love us anymore." My heart clenched. "Can I see them?" She nodded, calling toward the bedrooms. "Kids, Uncle Brice is here." The thundering of small feet on hardwood floors was immediate and overwhelming. Tyler reached me first, launching himself into my arms with the fearless trust that only 7-year-olds possess. "Uncle Brice, You came, I thought you weren't coming because you were mad at us. I'm not mad at you, buddy. I could never be mad at you. Connor, Sophia, and Emma crowded around, all talking at once, all expressing variations of relief and excitement that I was there. Their unconditional love and forgiveness made my throat tight with emotion. We made you something, Sophia announced importantly. It's a surprise. Emma, the youngest at 4, tugged on my sleeve. It's a book. We made you a book. Tyler disappeared into one of the bedrooms and returned with a handmade photo album, the cover decorated with construction paper hearts and glitter glue. We wanted to give it to you for Christmas, but Mommy said you might not come, so we finished it anyway. I opened the album with shaking hands. The first page was titled Uncle Brice's Best Moments, in Connor's careful 9-year-old handwriting. The pages that followed contained photos from the past few years. Me teaching Tyler to skateboard Connor, and me building a fort in Dad's backyard. Sophia and me decorating cookies, Emma on my shoulders at the zoo. But it wasn't just photos. Each picture was accompanied by captions written in different colored markers. Uncle Brice teaches the best skateboard tricks. Uncle Brice makes the best blanket forts. Uncle Brice gives the best piggyback rides. Uncle Brice always listens to our stories. The last page contained a group photo from last Christmas, all of us laughing around Mom and Dad's tree with a caption that read, Uncle Brice makes Christmas better. I had to close the album and take a deep breath before I could speak. These children who had been worried that they'd done something to make me not love them had spent their time creating a tribute to all the ways they loved me. This is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me. I told them, meaning every word. So you're coming to Christmas? Tyler asked, hopefully. I looked at Madison, who was watching the exchange with tears in her eyes. If your mom says it's okay, and if Grandma and Grandpa want me there, then yes, I'm coming to Christmas. The celebration that erupted from the kids was loud enough to wake the entire building. But through their cheers and excited chatter, I heard Madison's voice, quiet and grateful. They've missed you so much. We all have. An hour later, Madison and I loaded the kids into her car and drove to Mom and Dad's house. The conversation during the 20-minute drive was the most honest we'd had in years. She told me about the fear of losing the apartment, about skipping meals, to make sure the kids had enough, about lying awake at night, calculating and recalculating bills that never quite added up. I told her about the bonus, about my vision of the perfect Christmas surprise, about how hurt I'd felt when it seemed like nobody valued my presence unless I was providing something. I wanted to be included, not just useful, I explained. And I needed help but didn't know how to ask for it without feeling like a failure, she replied. By the time we pulled into Mom and Dad's driveway, we'd found our way back to understanding each other. Dad answered the door before we could knock, his face breaking into relief when he saw us together. Thank God, he said, pulling us both into a hug. I was afraid we'd lost Christmas entirely. Mom appeared behind him, tears already flowing. Brice, honey, we're so sorry. We didn't understand what you were trying to do. I'm sorry too, I said. I should have been clearer about my plans, and I should have paid attention to what everyone actually needed instead of focusing on what I wanted to give. The family reunion that followed was emotional and honest in ways our gatherings hadn't been in years. I presented Dad with a check that would eliminate his medical debt entirely, watching his face transform from confusion to disbelief to overwhelming gratitude. Son, this is too much, he said, his voice breaking. Dad, you had a heart attack trying to provide for this family. The least I can do is make sure the bills from saving your life don't destroy your financial life. For Mom, I had arranged for her car to be fixed and had also set aside money for her to resume her regular medical appointments without worrying about transportation. But the real gift was watching our family learn to communicate honestly for the first time in years. Madison admitted her financial struggles. Dad admitted the extent of his medical bills. Mom admitted she'd been skipping her own care to help everyone else. And I admitted that my grand gesture had been as much about my need to feel important as it was about helping my family. The kids, oblivious to the adult complexities that had nearly derailed everything, were simply happy that everyone was together and crying happy tears instead of sad ones. Christmas Eve dinner was different than any we'd had before, not because of the food or the decorations, but because of the honesty. We talked about real things, shared actual problems, and made plans to support each other moving forward. As I watched Madison laugh with Mom over something Tyler had said, as I saw Dad's shoulders relax for the first time in months, as I felt Emma's small hand slip into mine, I realized something important. The perfect Christmas I'd been planning was never about the money. It was about the family being together, being honest with each other, and finding ways to support one another through difficult times. We'd almost lost that because of pride, miscommunication, and fear. But sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in conflict that forces you to fight for what really matters. 6 months have passed since that Christmas Eve when our family almost fell apart, and I can honestly say it was the turning point that saved us. Not just financially, though the money certainly helped. The real salvation came from finally learning to have honest conversations instead of making assumptions about each other's motivations. Madison used the $8,000 to stabilize her situation, but more importantly, she started therapy to help manage the stress and pride that had made asking for help feel impossible. The therapist helped her understand that accepting support wasn't weakness. It was modeling healthy relationships for her children. Within 3 months, Madison got a promotion to charge nurse that came with better pay and more reasonable hours. She insisted on paying back half of the money I'd given her, but I redirected it into college funds for Tyler, Connor, Sophia, and Emma instead. Watching her face when I told her that each child now had $2,000 growing in education accounts was worth more than any repayment. Dad's medical bills being eliminated changed more than just his bank account. It changed his entire demeanor. The stress lines around his eyes softened. He started sleeping better, and he was able to focus on recovery instead of constantly worrying about debt. His latest cardiac checkup was the best he'd had since the surgery, something his doctor attributed partly to reduced stress levels. Mom returned to her regular medical appointments and got her blood pressure properly managed for the first time in over a year. But the bigger change was that she stopped trying to be the family caretaker who solved everyone's problems by herself. She learned to let her adult children handle their own challenges while still offering support when asked. The kids thankfully bounced back from the drama with the resilience that children possess. They kept the photo album they'd made for me, but added new pages throughout the spring and summer. Tyler's latest addition was a picture of us at his baseball game with the caption, "Uncle Brice cheers the loudest." Emma added a photo from her birthday party. Uncle Brice gives the best presents, but the best present is that he comes to everything. Those captions reminded me daily that what the kids valued most wasn't what I could buy them, but that I showed up consistently in their lives. The extended family dynamics shifted too. My cousins Jake and Emma became regular mediators when communication started to break down, having learned from our near disaster at Christmas. Aunt Patricia, who I'd been supposed to pick up that Christmas Eve, became the family's official keeper of honest conversations, calling people out when pride or stubbornness started creating problems. But the most significant change was in how Madison and I related to each other. We instituted monthly coffee dates where we talked about real things: work, stress, money, concerns, parenting challenges, relationship hopes. No more dancing around issues or making indirect requests that could be misinterpreted. During one of these conversations in spring, Madison told me something that put the entire Christmas crisis in perspective. I realized that when I was demanding you babysit and contribute money, I wasn't just asking for help. I was testing whether you really cared about us. If you'd agreed to everything without pushing back, it would have proven you loved us. When you refused, it felt like proof that you didn't. And I was testing whether you valued me for who I am versus what I could provide, I replied. When you made demands, Instead of just accepting my presence, it felt like proof that I was only useful, not loved. We were both testing each other's love in the worst possible ways, creating no-win scenarios that nearly destroyed what we were trying to protect. The lesson that emerged from our Christmas disaster became a family motto of sorts. Say what you need and ask what you want. No more hints. No more indirect requests. No more assumptions about other people's motivations. Madison learned to say, "I'm struggling financially and need help," instead of creating elaborate scenarios that required assistance without requiring vulnerability. I learned to say, "I want to be included in Christmas as family, not just as help," instead of refusing reasonable requests and hoping people would guess at my underlying concerns. Mom and Dad learned to say, "We're worried about money and health," instead of hiding problems to protect their adult children from worry. The kids learned that grown-ups sometimes have fights that aren't anyone's fault, and that saying sorry and meaning it can fix almost anything. Last Christmas was everything I'd originally envisioned, but for different reasons. Not because I'd solved everyone's problems with money, but because we'd learned to solve our communication problems with honesty. The kids still got great gifts, but they also got something more valuable. A family that talked through conflicts instead of letting them explode. Madison hosted Christmas dinner without stress because she'd learned to ask for specific help from specific people instead of trying to manage everything alone. Dad enjoyed the holiday without the weight of financial anxiety crushing his spirit. Mom participated fully instead of worrying about everyone else's hidden struggles. And I got what I'd wanted most: to be valued as a family member, not just as a provider. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd gotten this by learning to provide emotional support and honest communication, not just financial resources. The deeper lesson took months to fully understand. Generosity isn't just about money, and family isn't just about blood relations. Real generosity is about giving people what they actually need, even when it's not what you want to give. And real family is about creating safety for each other, to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to admit when you're struggling. My $21,000 bonus ended up changing our family, just not in the way I'd originally planned. The money helped, but the crisis forced us to develop better relationships with each other. We learned that love isn't just about grand gestures, it's about showing up consistently, communicating clearly, and fighting for each other, even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes the best Christmas gifts come wrapped in conflict that forces you to grow. Sometimes the biggest act of love is having the hard conversation you've been avoiding. And sometimes the family you almost lose is the family you needed to fight to keep. Today, Tyler's latest photo album entry shows all of us at last month's family barbecue, laughing around Dad's picnic table. His caption reads, "Uncle Brice's family learns how to love better." Out of the mouths of babes comes the truth: we did learn how to love better. Not perfectly, but more honestly, more directly, and more bravely than we ever had before. Have you ever had a family conflict that felt like it was going to destroy your relationships, but ended up making them stronger? How did you learn to communicate better with people you love? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in family struggles makes all the difference. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more real-life stories, and share it with someone who might need to hear that even the worst family fights can lead to better understanding. Thanks for listening, and I hope your families find the courage to have those hard conversations that bring you closer together instead of driving you apart.